It's so good to see you all. So you've had a couple of classes since I last saw you, and I see you're still coming. So that's a good sign. Are you enjoying it? Are you learning?
Yep.
Loving it? Well, we're so glad to hear that. That's awesome. So today, if you've got this little piece of paper right here, everybody with me? Okay, that's our agenda inside here today. I'm Kitty Barker with Virginia Tourism Corporation. Usually when people hear about tourism, they think marketing, but I work in development. I work with businesses that are trying to get started with tourism projects. So I've worked with Terry Ann, I've worked with Jack, worked with Eva and Mike, and Nathan. I've met with Nathan a couple of times. I've been to the alpacas and kissed him, and he kissed me back. Not him. The alpaca.
I get in enough trouble.
I know. So today we're going to do a few of you for your speed practice pitches. And you see there's 5 of us there. So to make it quick, you get how many minutes? 3 minutes. And then we're going to just take 1 minute for you to ask questions. We're going to shorten it up a little bit because we got 5 pitches today, and we need time to get through everybody. So we are going to start with Catherine. Now you have little forms. Show me your forms. Got them? Got them? Got them? Who doesn't have your forms? Got them? Got them? I know this is like kindergarten, but you wouldn't believe we get halfway through and somebody goes, oh, I have a form.
Okay, kindergarten.
Kindergarten, get your forms. You don't have any forms?
Oh, yes, I have my forms, ma'am.
Okay.
I got a form? No.
Just see if they have a form for her. Okay, so are we good? All right, Catherine, you ready? Let's give her a big hand.
Good evening. My name is Catherine Hayden, and this is my husband, Stacy. I believe on the first night I may have introduced him as an empty chair. We own Sweetworks Custom Cakes and Cupcakes, and the reason I call them custom cakes and cupcakes is because they're all original recipes that I have made through experimenting and trying different things and many hours of baking and tasting and testing, and so that's why they call them custom. I also call them custom because they are custom decorated, and it's all by hand, and they're all done to order from customers. So I started my business in April 2014. I became a vendor at the Abingdon Farmers Market. I was baking in my home at this time, so I became a vendor at the Farmers Market, and I started a Facebook page where I started posting pictures of some of the cakes and things that I had done. So that's how I started, by putting them out and marketing that way. So from there, I did the Washington County Business Challenge last January. Started meeting more people, started meeting more businesses. So at this point, I'm getting pretty busy. Still baking in my kitchen, starting to bust at the seams. Starting to get complaints that there's no food other than butter and sugar and flour. So we start looking for somewhere to rent. So I found a kitchen in Highway. It's a commercial kitchen that was a restaurant that they were no longer using. I contacted them. We started using their kitchen in August 1st. I started renting there. So from there, I have started selling to 2 restaurants now. I was contacted by a pharmacy that wants to set up a cupcake display, start selling at his business. Today I was called by a manufacturer that wants me to start selling to his business. They do cupcakes for their employees. So we're still growing and growing, and so to go along with the cupcakes and cakes, we wanted to introduce catering into the mix. So in comes my husband. He got a very nice gift a couple years ago for Father's Day. It was a green egg smoker. So he started making barbecue, started having friends say, you should sell this, is really good, you should sell this. So when somebody says that, we're like, oh yeah, maybe we should sell that. So we are going to expand into the catering business. So, but, I mean, they are all original recipes, and I've really worked hard to make them the best that they can be. And I think the decorating, you know, it's a skill that you learn over time. It's not just something that you just pick up and do. It's something that I worked at for several years as far as the decorating goes.
I think I could add to that. I think Catherine's personality, and everybody who had met her in the challenge, she puts she has it's a branding almost. She's so approachable, so kind. You just want to eat her cupcakes. So it's I think that also it sets you aside.
But tell them how you got into this. That's what really is the
At
story.
At your mama's.
Where did you learn this craft?
I grew up doing this. I'm the fourth generation. My great-grandmother baked, my grandmother, my mother, and now me. And so when we had my daughter, I had a chance to stay at home with her. And so after a few years, I was like, it's time to go back to work, but let's do something I love this time. So I started baking and took off with it.
Okay, Jenna, how we doing on time?
Oh, we're out.
We're out of time. Okay, good job.
My alarm was very quiet, but I turned it on all the way to stop. It was like, it made very different.
All right, McKenna's our timekeeper. Okay, Sonia.
Can I remote my chart? I only have 4 charts. Can I click them? You got a clicker up there, Lois?
Hello, I'm Jack Van Hook. I want to talk to you a little bit about J&M Tool and Supply.
Jack has had 30 years' experience in the construction industry. He has worked for Home Depot, Lowe's, Fastenal, Dublin Tool, which is a subsidiary of the True Value Hardware. He has taken the best practices from each one of these competitors and incorporated it into his own business. My name is Sonia Van Hook. I have 20 years' experience in small business management.
Talk a little bit about a business concept, provide quality products with competitive price at a convenient location. The only company to drive a fully stocked truck to the construction job sites. There are other companies that sell tools and fasteners. They go to the job sites, make sales calls, but they don't have any product with them. You have to place an order, they go back, see if they've got it in stock, bring it and deliver it in a few days.
I do want to point out that the pictures you're seeing in the presentation are products that we carry. What is the relevancy of our business? It solves the customer's problem. A job can be shut down by lack of a tool or the accessory. If you have the saw, that's fine, but if you don't have the saw blade, then that's going to be an hour or maybe 2 hours where an employee, and that's usually the foreman, job superintendent, who has to go and purchase that product. And you don't have, most of them do not have the time to waste going off-site. We offer on-site delivery. The quantified value, what is the benefit? It saves valuable time, and as they always say, time is money. The unique difference, why buy from us rather than the competition? Because Jack has the knowledge of what's coming up next. It doesn't matter what stage you're in a building product, in a building process, he can say, all right, here you're at this stage. Do you have the screws, the nails, the accessories that you need to move to the next phase? So he already knows what they're going to need. The price, we are competitive. We compare prices all the time, and we are available. If the product is right there on your job site, why wouldn't you buy it? And then, of course, we warranty our products.
Some of the products that I do carry, like power tools, DeWalt, Milwaukee, Hitachi, Bosch, carry all kinds of fasteners from screws to anchors for all phases of the job, safety equipment, hard hats, safety vests, harnesses and lanyards. So a lot of items that OSHA looks for on the jobs, and epoxies for setting certain anchors in concrete and masonry.
we've talked a lot about this on-site delivery, so we thought we'd show you a picture of the truck. There it is. He told me to say what size it is and what time, but you just have to wait till the real presentation to find out. Are there questions?
Questions?
Yes.
Is it just the one truck right now?
Yes.
So if someone calls, what's the, like, and they need something, I know it's based on, your geography, obviously, but what's your turnaround to get something to it?
Most of the people that I deal with will call early in the morning, 7, sometimes even 6 o'clock in the morning, and tell me they're needing something. I'll say, okay, I'll be by such and such time, if I've got it in stock. A lot of them give me a day or two notice, but a lot of them wait till the very last minute. That's one of the reasons when I'm on the site, I try and look ahead for them, because the superintendent is dealing with all the different subcontractors and is just trying to stay on schedule. And I try and be an extra set of eyes to look forward to see what he's going to be needing. So,
Can I add to that? What kind of, payment, are you using like PayPal or Square or something like that? Are you taking a credit card?
Take credit cards, it's through Elevon.
Okay.
And then I have some customers set up on a monthly account as well.
Okay, let's give them a hand. All right, and thank you, McKenna, for turning that alarm up louder. All right, are y'all filling this out as you're going?
Yeah.
Need a minute? Need a minute to fill out a little bit?
Do you have any extras or?
She wasn't here when you said it.
I was here at
Rob,
5:20.
we have any extras?
Yeah, we have a bunch.
Yeah, we have a bunch of extras. Anybody else need forms? Forms.
Absolutely.
Thank you. You're welcome. We have 15 more seconds to put your thoughts down.
But no pressure.
No pressure. Five more seconds. I should give you that. Okay, I want you all to turn around to Carl and say, "Hey, Carl."
Hi, Carl.
Carl came down from, were you in Richmond this morning today? So he's late because of the rain and so thank you for driving.
No problem.
All right, who's next? Tony. All right.
Hi, I'm Tony Warren. My husband and I own Warren Cleaning and Restoration. We would probably be potential customers of you all. We do disaster restoration and carpet cleaning, primarily disaster restoration, which means we fix, clean up from, and repair issues from damage because of water, fire, or soot, mold, storms. So far, right now, it's just my husband and I. We do a lot of subcontracting. We work very closely with my father-in-law's company, who has a construction company. So they handle our repairs, or we'll hire their men. We also cement use temps. We operate out of Big Stone Gap right now in Wise County. We travel about a 2-hour radius, though. One of our competitive edges that we do travel to the more rural corners that other companies don't prefer to. We are looking right now to stabilize and grow, if that makes sense. Like someone had mentioned in one of our courses, we want to make sure we're not just busy and that we're actually growing. First by stabilizing where we are fairly seasonal. Winter is certainly our busier time. We want to bring in some steady, more regular cash flow through carpet cleaning, primarily getting contracts with property owners or apartment communities, as well as something we like to incorporate called Home Watch for people who don't live, maybe they have investment properties, they're on site, we can perform inspections for them. We primarily do a lot of face-to-face marketing. We visit local agents, One in particular feeds us a lot of business, and just through that, we've met different insurance adjusters. They supply us directly with a lot of work. We're starting to move into larger marketing arenas, such as going to events where we can meet more adjusters. We rely a lot on that face-to-face personal relationship, though. Just today, for example, on my way here, one insurance adjuster we haven't yet done work with heard such wonderful things from someone we do work with, and she's putting us on her recommendation list, even though we're not yet on this third-party referral list she uses. So we want to continue with that in our rebranding, maybe even put our faces on our trucks when we get them wrapped and all. And something else that's going to be important to us as far as the family ethics mentality goes, we'd like to be very involved in our community. We already sponsor the local high school sports teams, so we'd like to do more things like that, and even hosting events to invite the community and vendors and their families and everything too.
All right, thank you.
What type of competition do you have?
Mostly franchises, Surf Pro, Paul Davis, Puro Clean, and that's one of our marketing tactics. We're locally owned, operated. It's just my husband and I. When you call, I answer. If homeowners have any questions, it's he and I that decide, so it's a lot more efficient. You know, they can get quicker answers and turn around.
So my house got burnt down on April Fool's, and so anyways, of course, the first company that comes to mind is Surpro, and their marketing, their cars is amazing because it's a bright green and it's ugly with an orange triangle. And but anyways, what do you all do as far as marketing? You know, Facebook, it seems like it would work for most businesses, but
yeah, we're trying with Facebook. We're trying to let homeowners know you can choose the company. I'm sure your insurance company said, "Oh, call Surpro," or maybe two other people, and it gets in your head. You have to call one of them. We're in the middle of rebranding, and our vehicles are going to be Tennessee orange and Carolina blue. So we'll stand out too with a little local camaraderie again. Oh, I'll go over time, but
Good job, let's give her a hand. All right, Ms. Marla.
thank you.
Ready? Good to go? Thank you. My name is Marla, and I own my own business, the Crooked Road General Store. And I learned on May 1st when I opened that up that OWN is an acronym for other work needed. And so I learned that I could tie in all of the other work relations that I had into owning a stop along the renowned Crooked Road. So my idea was to open it up. We would serve breakfast and lunch, and we'd pick a guitar down off the wall every once in a while and play a few songs. And we just have we got a lot of VDOT workers, a lot of different folks that are working along the highway there. So when we got these workers in, they'd always want to take a guitar down off the wall and strum a little something. So next thing you know, we had a little session to get together to play in the round. So there were several of us that sat down, and they said, why don't we do this on a Monday night? So I wanted to pick a night that others weren't having their shows. So we got together, we picked. Next thing you know, they say, what can we eat at that? We started serving supper, and to this day, we're in the 5th year. We've been open since 2010. Every Monday night, we have a live stream of the Mountain Music Showcase TV show. We have a recording for Saturday mornings at 8:30 for the Mountain Music Showcase TV show, and we sell brown beans and cornbread, fried bologna, the burgers and fries, and homemade meatloaves, green beans, cream potatoes, banana puddings, a great place for supper and friends to fellowship. I've taken my love of most of all people, most of all music, and most of all eating, And I've combined, well, you didn't have to laugh at that one. I've taken those three things and put those together, and I'm proud to be a part of the renowned, as I said, the Crooked Road. Our difference is that it's a level parking lot. We don't charge anyone to come in on our Monday nights. We have everyone to help themselves. If they want to eat, that's fine. If not, that's fine. And I'm proud to say that we've been able to donate a lot of things to different folks along the way. Last night, we had taken up in the last month over $200 for foods. There are 55 children every weekend that go home from Valley Institute School alone that don't have weekend meals. So we donated all of the foods to make backpacks. That's a big part of our love, is helping our community. And I would invite you all to come on out, pick a song on the Old Southern Porch, which is the name of our stage. And my goal is to continue to grow that and create my own stage so that we can have our 2 festivals a year and carry an entire line of Crooked Road General Store products. I already have 2 ideas. There are 2 businesses in here that I've already created. The poster, that's another kind of work that I do. I'm giving out tickets. Everybody's going to get 1 ticket to this particular show tonight if you'd like to come. And I'd like to offer you too that you would have an ad in the program for your personal business. Those typically go for $58, and I'm offering that to you today. I ask you to become a fan of the Crooked Road General Store.
Questions? More bribes.
I know my people.
You sound super unique. What can compete with you?
Well, that's what I'm talking about. No, there are lots of things. There's so many venues in this area, but I'll tell you what's special about my place. Sometimes they call my place the activities room at Shady Pines because our big thing is being sure that everybody's walked into the door. We only hold about 100 people on a big day, and the wave. We only hold about 100 people on the space that we have there. It's on 3/10 of an acre, so you don't grow that way. The way you grow is getting everyone to come to different events and come to your larger events. And I want to say that I really thank Jack and Sonia because they come all the time, so that's a pretty cool thing.
It's a wonderful place. If you ever have the chance to visit on a Monday night, go by and listen to the singing and buy the food. It's good.
I haven't tried their tools yet, though. When I do, I've learned we can help each other, that's for sure.
All right, good job. Thank you, Marla.
Thank you.
Okay, Eva's coming up.
I have to follow her.
Let's give them about 10 seconds to write notes here.
It's your turn to sing.
Just tell me when.
Let's give them 2 more seconds. 5 more seconds. Ready?
Well, my name is Eva, and my husband Michael and I own Adventure Mendota, and I appreciate you all letting me talk about my baby tonight. It's all I talk about. So, we opened on May 9th in Mendota, Virginia, on the North Fork of the Holston River. We put our first kayak in that day. Between May 9th and September the 8th, we put in 2,400 watercraft and served 2,600 people. We're out there in the middle of nowhere, but we learned that we're about 45 minutes from everywhere. So, we had a very good year, and we're going to expand, but our expansion is based on a very simple concept. We're going to keep doing what we're doing, but we're going to attempt to do more of it. The first thing we're going to do, we put all those people on the river with a 5-day-a-week operation. We'll be expanding to 7 days. We'll be adding an additional kayak route. We're going to start tubing on Memorial Day. We got a late start on tubing. It didn't really start until the 4th of July. So we think we can put several hundred more people on with the earlier tubing date. We'll also be offering tubing every 30 minutes. We did have this kind of funny little schedule, so we've got a more accommodating schedule. And we're going to expand our retail offerings, like Kathy Lowe mentioned the other night. We want to have some opportunities to upsell, increase our revenue. So that expansion, what's it going to mean? Well, hopefully, it's going to be more revenue. but it's also going to mean more employees. This is our first kayak team, 2015. That's Neff and Will. We're going to be adding another kayak team, another tubing person, and a full-time year-round person to do marketing, bookkeeping, and administrative activities for Adventure Mendota. So that's what the expansion will result in. If we're fortunate enough to be awarded the grant, what we would do is buy a second transport, or a third transport vehicle for customers, an additional kayak trailer, additional watercraft and associated equipment, some marketing and promotional retail apparel. And for anybody who came out, we have one bathroom. All those people have one bathroom. We would like to add another bathroom. Since we live where there is no park, there is no store, there is no infrastructure to support us outside of what we have. And our neighbors have asked us not to put porta potties out. So, any questions?
I just want to make a note. That is absolutely fantastic. 2,400 people, that is some daggone good stuff. And I know that we're competing against each other, and I know that we're all competing against each other, but for the first year, that is awesome, because we did that in our second year with 2 buses, and they had a bus and a van, I think. And,
Getting people around was a thank you.
Yes.
And let me tell you, Terry Ann mentored us. So, and that's what I like about this group. You know, even though it's kind of I'm nervous up here, you know you're among friends. People really will reach out and help you. And Terry Ann did mentor us. And yes, we are competition, but I hope that we're the kind of competition where there's more rocks in the water, the higher it rises. So, any other questions?
All right, let's give her a hand.
We can move those numbers up a little bit.
Are you still flying?
We're gonna, well, we stopped while the water was low, but it's raining.
I know.
So, we'll be back now probably this weekend.
All right, I'll give you a few seconds to finish up your forms. Or if you'll leave your forms kind of piled up there, Robin will pick them up during break. Are you ready, Mr. Relations?
I'm ready anytime. Sure.
I'll tell Kim Begley you said hello. I work with him. Send you over to our office.
Okay.
There you go.
All right, so our guest speaker tonight, I know you've had several really good guest speakers, and it was our goal to bring in people that are experts in this advanced entrepreneur class. So you're past 101, now you're up here in the 301s. And so our next guest is Joel Cullum. He is from Sesco Management Consultants, and you have his bio right here. And I'm just going to let him tell you about himself and what he knows. And is there anything you want to know from them before you get started?
It would take a while, so
It
I'm
would.
going to fly blind on this if that's all right.
All right, so let's give Joel a big hand.
Good evening. Y'all ready for some employee relations 101?
Yeah.
All right. My name's Joel Cullum with Sesco Management Consultants. We're based out of Bristol. People go, well, where's that? And I'm like, well, if you've been to Weaver Funeral Home, we're just around the corner. And if you look above Applebee's, you'll see us on the parkway there. So I've been asked to come in and try to give you all, in an hour and a half, basically, everything I can impart upon you on employee relations and some of the things that are happening in the workplace. And it's a broad topic. I need about 3 days with you, so I'm going to try to give you, I've actually tried to give you a lot of information that we're not going to be able to cover it all. I've got 6 topics to cover with you on human resources and give you some inkling of where you might want to ask some questions and challenge yourself as you grow. Some of you may not have employees yet, but as you grow, it's just a whole bitter battle sometimes. So I've been with Sesco for 19 years, and my pictures are a little dated. I needed to put some hair coloring in there. The white shirt still works, but the hair coloring is changing on me a little bit. But we're a human resource employee relations consulting firm, have been around since 1945. We're a 3rd generation firm, owned, female-owned firm actually, by Andrea Lawson Ford, and her husband run the firm, and I sit at the right hand of them. So that gives you a little insight. And so if you ever need anything, you've got contact information on the front. Some of you all might want that. For the email, by the way, on the front of it, all you have to do to change it to get me is just put Joel at Sesco MGT, and I'll be happy to help. I may not reply immediately because I travel a bit, but be happy to help. But I was asked I do training for UDAYs on occasion, and that's how I'm in front of you all. Okay, they called and said, would you mind doing the incubator with us? So I'm going to try to walk through some topics with you. I'm a little, not disjointed, I'm casual in my approach. Y'all feel free to ask questions, stop me, say I don't understand. I'll dial it quickly back in though, to just move on. If we need to talk afterwards, we can, okay? So as you go through your document on the first page, let's see if we can get to that. And I do work out of the handbook a little bit, or what we've provided to you all a little bit. You can see I've got over 50 pages of information, and that's a lot, okay? But what I tried to break it down into was some areas that I thought would be helpful to you all. So the first one's employee documentation, some of the very basic things that I want you to think about as you grow. Then I'm going to speak just briefly on employment regulations and laws. I can spend 3 hours in this area, okay? I'm going to hit you with a couple new things that are popping up there. And then I want to work into some things about hiring, the do's and don'ts of hiring, questions you can ask, questions you can't. I'm providing you all some information that I can't tell Andrea or Bill about because we sell forms. And I'm going to hand that out to you in a little while. Performance management, the value of managing the performance of an employee, briefly there. Discipline, what happens when the wheels come off, and termination, some highlights there. And finally, the value, I don't care what size you are, of having some type of written communication, cornerstone of employer-employee relationship, having a handbook. Okay? All right, you ready? Okay, so the first thing I want to start with is I'm just going to split both sides and y'all just let it meet in the middle. Just grab one of these. This is some forms that I put together today thinking about what you all might need as a small business. And I know some of you are more expanded, you already got some employees, you already have gone through this process, and others may not have thought about this. You might be familiar with your HR function through the businesses that you've worked in previously, and now you're putting it together going, oh God, what do I do now? Okay? So I'm going to give you some very basic information. And one of the things that we do at Sesco is audit. We go into places like United Central Industrial Supply and audit files, and how do you have things set up. Every business needs to have an HR function set up, okay, when you grab those employees, and what we look for there. So, one of the things that I think would be important to you is to understand that you really need, as fundamental as this is, you need to set up, when you hire an employee, you need to have a couple files, okay? Everybody familiar with the I-9 form? Everybody good with that? Okay, there's a current addition to that thing right now. It's a revision takes you through 2016. Google it, you can buy them, but you can get it for free from the IRS online or online. And I'm only giving you the last 3 pages of it in this document if you're not aware of it. The I-9 form is the proof of somebody's eligibility to work in the United States. Okay, so make sure you have that piece in there. I don't care if they grew up down the street from you. They need to provide a Social Security card, birth certificate, driver's license to prove who they are, or a passport, okay? And that thing has become more and more, my 19 years has become more and more critical. The other thing is the general employee file, and I'm providing some more information on the general employee file, what you should keep in that versus an employee medical file. You really need to have 2 files, okay? If an employee brings a doctor's excuse and says, you know, this employee's been under my care, they've had bronchitis, well, as soon as they name what the illness is, you need to put it somewhere else besides the employee file, okay? And that has to do with the Americans with Disabilities Act and have these things separate. And frankly, it should be in a separate drawer locked away, okay, for HIPAA reasons, among other things. So make sure you have the 3 files. We like to have I-9 separated, but if you only have a few employees, you can leave it in the general file. It's just up for audit occasionally. So as you walk through this, you'll see in the employee file some of the required documents on page 3. And there's a variety of them. Y'all can scan these things and go, gosh, I don't even know what some of this is. But on page 3, and I don't have a slide for all of this material to go up there. When you hire a new employee, you're going to see the second piece on page 3 of my handout is new hire reporting. That's deadbeat dad legislation or deadbeat mom legislation that's been around. You need to find whether you use your own, a payroll firm or or do it yourself. You need to report to the state when you've hired somebody. It allows the state to find somebody that has garnishments for child support. It used to be prior to this that people would jump state lines or jump jobs, and it would take a while for the courts to find the individual. Now it just goes into a database, and it's online. You can just do a Commonwealth of Virginia new hire reporting and file it online. It's very simple. And if you haven't been doing it, there's really no teeth to it. They don't get real mad at you. They just say, well, why haven't you been doing it? You say, well, I just found out about it. Okay, so there's no teeth to it, but make sure you do that. Okay, the I-9 form, new hire reporting, and then beyond that, you see all these other little pieces of information that you may or may not use. When I audit, the things I look for in an audit is the employment application, which I provided you one of our copies of the employment application, okay, for free. So you can have that. Just don't tell anybody it's Seska because we do sell that. Okay, and you can use it for yourself if you need that. We look for that. We look for a completed signature, with a signature on it. I look for a handbook, if you have that, a handbook receipt. Those are the 2 key areas because that helps you, it protects you in the event that your relationship sours with an employee. Okay, you got protections there to say, yeah, they've signed off on these 2 documents. Would I like to see other things like job descriptions and all those good things and sexual harassment training? Sure, I would. But for any business, I want to look for those 2 pieces. Okay, and then you build around it. Questions? Okay, I'm going to try to, do you have a timer on you? Okay, no alarm. I'll keep an eye on the clock and everything. So, okay. And if you ever have questions to any of this, I'll give the first call for free. So, anyway. So we've got all the, well, I did have a slide on this. So all the different types of things. Reference checks. I'm really not digging into reference checks a whole lot tonight. But I will tell you that I think it's very valuable. People say, oh, you can't get any good information. You can get good information on reference checks. Okay, put the burden back on the employee. If they want a job with you and they've listed their minister and their brother-in-law as references, say, I really need somebody that's worked with you, a former supervisor or a former coworker, and get the cell phone number. Okay, say, I want, and tell them that I want everything, have open access to them. Okay, as opposed to calling an HR department somewhere, which won't tell you anything other than their how long they worked there, what their role was, and potentially how much money they made. Okay, and then I'll tell you the key question here. I will give you this piece on reference checks. You can get good references. What you do is you spend a little time with it. You explain the job to the individual on the phone. John Doe has applied for this position. Here's what we're looking for in this position. Now, based on what you know about John, how can we make him or her or Jane be successful in the position? When you ask that, they will tell you things that they might need to work on. Well, they don't have excellent Excel work, or maybe Microsoft Office or whatever it may be, but they usually will tell you some of their shortcomings. Okay, so just think about that. Put the burden on the employee and or the applicant, and move forward with it. Okay, questions? All right, go ahead.
You mentioned that you would tell us about what kind of questions we can ask and which ones we can't ask.
Yeah,
what can we ask as far as references go?
As far as references go?
Right. I mean, what are the hot things we have to stay away from?
Okay. Well, I mean, we'll move into that right now then. For hiring purposes, any question that you ask about an applicant really needs to be performance-based. Okay? And you're going to find I've got the do's and don'ts of questions not to ask. Don't ask anything that relates to, that has nothing to do with performance. Okay? So regardless of age, race, religion, any of that stuff, we typically get into some areas that people will provide characteristics about themselves that would show, that they throw it out there to say, well, I go to, First Baptist down the street. Well, we're actually not, shouldn't use that in our evaluation of the individual. Okay? Religion should have nothing to do with it. On the other hand, if I'm at a car dealership, the owner wants to know that because they want to know what kind of network they've got so they can sell cars. Okay? But it's one of those pieces that you just have to stay away from. As long as you can look at the question and say, how will they be successful in this job? Those are the questions, all right. You got to be careful about attendance questions. What was their attendance like last year? Well, if they had a medical illness that may be ADA covered, Americans with Disabilities Act, we can run afoul. So you got to be, that's a great question. We got to understand where it comes from. Does it make sense? What was their attendance like? Well, all of a sudden you go down that path. Okay. I don't know if I'm answering it all, but we typically look. You can ask about how they got along with coworkers. What was their disposition like? What was their productivity, quality? All those things you can ask. Okay, you can ask about personality traits. Sometimes they will not give that to you because they don't want to get. There's this concern out there about being blackballed. Well, you blackballed me. You gave me a bad reference, and so I'm going to sue you for what you might have said. I've never seen that in 19 years, but that's what the attorneys will tell you. If there's any attorneys in here, I apologize. But they'll say, don't ask certain things. I really do want to know as much as I can. I would like to know what church they go to if they go to church. I want to know if they've got, problems at home, if there's alcoholism in the family. I want to know it all because I'm investing capital money into an individual. And I like to think about individuals as capital. We spend as much time purchasing a new van and evaluating what we might need, maybe more so on that agreement, than we do on employees sometimes because we need a warm body.
On that attendance thing, because that's really, if you work in manufacturing, you know how important attendance is. Yeah. If you can't get somebody in there to make your widgets, they're of no use to you at all. But could I phrase it? This is what I've done, and tell me if I'm wrong. Okay. Could I say, if I spoke with your past employer, would they tell me that you had good attendance? Am I okay to ask it in that way about his attendance? I haven't asked him directly how many days he missed. Was he ill? I've asked about the employer. What would they tell me?
Yeah, what would they? I like that question. What would your coworkers say about you? What would your supervisor, what would your employer say?
What would they tell me about your attendance? And that gets them to talk. But I haven't asked them, put them really on the spot. Yeah, you just have to be you just understand where it's coming from. The reality is nobody's going to say that's a stupid question and it's illegal to ask. Right. It's only the answer they give. Sometimes that we need to maybe step away from it. And may I ask, do you have reliable transportation to come to and from work? That's another really hard thing.
And I say, no, my mom drives me every day. I'll be here. And you can say, why did your mom drive you? And I say, well, I had a DUI last year.
I'm getting all kinds of stuff here now.
Yeah. With regards to transportation, you got to be careful with that one because there are certain groups within society that don't make as much money as other groups, and you can do it along race lines. And so that's not an appropriate question, believe it or not.
I know, that's what I was told.
Can you meet, what you're basically asking is, can you meet the work schedule? As fluid as it may be. Okay.
Can you get here?
When I ask, can you work on Sundays? Well, what does that predispose? That you want Sundays off to go to church?
Couldn't I say we're a continuous operation?
Exactly. That's how you say, can you meet the work schedule? Right. Okay? Lay it out there, just say, can you meet this work schedule, period. Okay, well, I need to be off early on Wednesdays. Can you meet work schedule? Okay? All right. So I knew we'd get bogged down in just one area real quickly.
Sorry.
Let's be more specific. I know you mentioned about religion, that's a hot topic, and it's illegal to ask about something religion. Is it okay to ask if you're tolerant of other people's religion? So I'll give you my background here. I teach a lot of homeschool children, and most of them do it for religious reasons. Okay. So if I hire someone, I need to make sure they're not going to run off customers with their beliefs. Is that key? Is this something that can even be addressed?
You need to be very careful with it. You can lay it out there to say we have a very multicultural, diverse group, but leave it there. Just lay it out there. Okay. I mean, one of the questions we get sometimes is, and this is a good question. Do you have any problems traveling out of state or traveling with some of your coworkers? Meaning me or Bill, some of the guys in the workplace. We have a young lady working for us. That's a sexist question at the end of the day. I wouldn't ask that of a young man, but it's a good question because it comes up. Because typically there's a boyfriend or spouse at home. Who are you traveling with? You know what I'm saying? So What we do is we lay it out there and just say, this is what the typical schedule will look like, and this is what a workday looks like, and then leave it alone. And then they can kind of voice any concerns they may have. Okay? Thank you. All right.
Can I ask you real quick?
Sure.
It's obvious you're an expert in this area. Have you been, I'm just looking at probabilities. Have you been to court a lot as an expert witness where somebody is suing somebody for asking the wrong questions?
No, it's very rare. It is
So
very
lawsuits are rare.
rare. Yeah, I mean, if I really had the time with you, but from like, you know, we hear about EEOC charges, sexual harassment charges, all this kind of things. You know, keep in mind that we have about 170 million people in this country that hold jobs like you and I. Last year, in the United States, including all state agencies and federal EEO agencies and equal employment agencies, there were less than 90,000 charges that went through those agencies. And of those to go to court, it's about 15%. So you're talking about, on a national basis, of 170 million people working, maybe 15,000 that actually go to court. So it's like lightning striking.
That was why, like, when he was talking about this, he lays out the requirements of the job, let's say. Religion's important. And he says, can you meet these requirements of the job? Okay, to me, it seems like he's within bounds to lay out the requirements, and if the person understands it and says they can do it, is he out of bounds?
No, he's not out of bounds. Saying this is the essential functions of the job.
Gotcha.
Kind of like Kim Davis in Kentucky, the essential function of the job is to do what she needs to be doing, or she can resign her position, because that's an essential function of the job. Okay, regardless of where you stand on that, that ultimately at the end of the day is what it is. Okay, all right, I'm gonna move on. Good questions though. Hope y'all are getting something out of this. Oh, Fair Labor Standards Act. Well, this is something that, this is the kind of stuff, I'm not gonna dig into this much, but these are the things that will be required of you when you have payroll, to have this information about your employees. Fair Labor Standards Act is about minimum wage, time record keeping, paying overtime, maintaining child labor laws, that kind of thing. Okay, so that's just some of the stuff that you have here in this packet. And that's usually, I don't get too many questions on that until you want to.
I do have a question on it, actually.
Go ahead.
From an exempt, non-exempt perspective.
Yep.
Do they really, are they getting stricter about
Yes.
that?
And it's getting crazy. Yeah, and that's one of my updates.
It's getting very expensive to be exempt
Yeah.
too.
So exempt, non-exempt, you know what that means? We always say, a lot of people just call it salary and hourly, okay? And what it means is you're exempt from minimum wage and time record keeping if you are kind of a salaried employee, all right? That means that you meet certain parameters or duties that allow you to be exempt from the act, and it's only for a few folks within an organization. They're usually executives that manage people, or they're high-level individuals that don't have employees below them, but they're functional department heads, like an HR director that doesn't have an employee department. Okay, they influence the business. And then you have professionals like CPAs, doctors, that kind of thing, RNs, teachers. And there's others, outside sales, among others, computer people, et cetera. But the exempt, non-exempt, you have to meet these duties. And what they've done, so I'm going to just dive into this change for next year, is the Obama administration pushed the DOL to make these changes and said, if you want to have an exempt employee that doesn't have a time card, and you don't have to pay time and a half over 40, and sometime in 2016, they haven't come out with the final yet, they just got done with the final regulations, they just got done with the comment period on September 4th, but they'll roll it out next year. People will have to make $970 a week guaranteed, that's over $50,000 a year. So if I go down to McDonald's down the street and the restaurant manager works 60 hours a week, and they've been paying them a salary, well, they don't make $50,000 as a base. They might get there at a McDonald's with $32,000 base or 28, and then all the other bonuses up for cleanliness, productivity, food costs, etc. They bonus them up. Now those people that are working 60 hours a week, they're going to have to try to figure out how to manage a restaurant. Okay, and it's going to hit everybody from your Roadrunner markets to it's very interesting. And it's going to have a greater impact on rural areas like ourselves because cost of living $50,000 is very nice for our communities. Okay, so that's one of the things that's coming. All right, most people will be hourly. They're trying to make a lot more people hourly employees. All right, questions? 50 plus pages, right? Okay, we're doing all right. We're doing all right. So I've got information as we go through this and I'm just not gonna get into all the wage now. Record retention, that comes up occasionally. How long do you keep things? I got an employee file, this employee was with me 5 years ago, can I toss the file? Okay? I like to use a 7-year, just to make it easy, just use a 7-year window. Okay? That'll cover everybody, because some are 2 years, some are 3 years, some are 5 years. If you have an employee that ever gets hurt on the job, and you get a workers' comp claim, I would encourage you to keep that for as long as your business is in operation. Because you never know when that employee's as a former employee that worked with you 10 years ago, gets an attorney and brings suit again to say, well, they didn't settle this right. And I've seen that one occur. Go ahead.
Doesn't have to be paper, correct?
Say that one more time.
Does not have to be paper?
Does not have.
Scanned electronically and files that way?
Yeah, if you can keep it there, I'd prefer to have hard copy on those medical files, on those workers' comp files. But scanning's okay in many cases. And we're seeing more and more of that prevalence of it. Okay? That just depends on the system, I think. What's that?
It's a great backup.
Yeah, no. No, I mean, if you have boxes and boxes of old employee files, you know, at a certain point, you're allowed to toss them. It's just that, I'm just encouraging you on the workers' comp, those kind of medical injuries, that could come back to bite you. Okay? But 7 years is a good rule of thumb. You'll see some people say 5 years. I like to go over a couple on that. All right? And that's what you have on these next couple pages is you can see the different types of files on pages 7, 8, 9, and 10. And really, how long do I have to keep this, that, and the other? All right? And that's what we provided to you here. Okay? And let's talk about what I did hand out. And I didn't really do a good job on this, but I did give you all just kind of a template of a new hire checklist to give you ideas of things to keep. You can modify this to your own. I mean, some organizations only have like 8 items on it. I did provide to you one of our applications, just a basic application, and we'll talk about that. It's got a great certification area at the bottom, and there's a great value in having a completed application. You all heard about ban the box. Anybody familiar with that?
Yeah.
There's 18, 19 states now that are requiring. Virginia just did this. It says you're not allowed to ask the question about have you had any convictions, felonies. Okay, until you get to the point, that's the box, you have to take it off. A state application in Virginia, state employees no longer ask that question. So you can go through this litany of interviews, and at the very end, when you're ready to make an offer, that's when you get to find out if they have a criminal record of who has been working in your organization. So you spent all this time doing it. Okay? So that's ban the box. But what we find is that people do lie on their applications, and many times, particularly when it comes to the felonies, convictions, they'll leave it blank, and then if you pull a background check, you find out. They're saying that they were truthful when they sign it, so make sure they complete it and sign it, okay? When they talk about their work history, don't let them just put, see resume. Have them complete it, all right? Because there's different, resumes don't tell you the address of the business, how much money they made, why they left, all right? It talks, typically, resumes are a little bit, what's the term I learned in the last election? Bloviation, too much hot air in them. You know, so they only talk about the good parts. They don't give us some basics. All right. I did give you a copy of the last 3 pages of the I-9, which you need to make sure that you do appropriately. And then, of course, you've got the W-4s and the Virginia 4 there, the VA-4 for tax purposes. And so just a little bit to get somebody started on a kind of a starter kit for your personnel files. All right? Okay. Questions?
Well, Virginia they're still an at-will state, is that correct?
So let's talk about at-will. You bring up a good point.
Because that's to me why there aren't any lawsuits in this area.
You'd be surprised. I mean, I am aware, you just don't hear about them. They get settled out, even before they go to the EEOC or Virginia Human Rights Commission. So at will. I would hazard for you to ever tell somebody that you're separating, that you're just using at will. And at will means that we hire somebody at will, and we're free to terminate you at any point in time without giving you a reason, as you are allowed to resign your position without any good reason to us. Okay? But the reality is, if I have somebody that's protected under the EEO laws, which is just about everybody these days, disability, age, you got to be over 40 years old to be protected for age. So if I was 41 and got displaced, I could actually bring a case, or try to. You replace me with a 21-year-old. religion, national origin. There's more national origin charges in the United States than there are sexual harassment charges in here. Okay? So, I hire so I hire a young black gal to come work for us. She's just not working out. And I pull that will on her, and she's been on the job in the first 90 days. And I say, this isn't working out, we're just going to say it's probationary period, we're going to let you go. You better have a pretty good reason. Don't say at will, because I've got a black female working in a Caucasian environment. Okay? Now I'm going to tell you, the EO laws protect everybody. They protect me. If I'm in an environment where I'm the minority, and I've seen that in credit unions where, you know, it's been a dozen women and a young man was told that he was, you know, you're not one of the girls, and was let go, and they had to settle very quickly with that. You can imagine if I went to a young lady working with all guys, said you're just not one of the guys. Okay? So, be careful with that word. Got it? And while we're on that, when we get determination, if we get determination, is I really encourage you all to pull the trigger on an individual with regards to separation in that first 90 days. Okay? If you go 91 days, from an unemployment standpoint, you've hurt yourself. The way, you know, unemployment works is the last 4 or 5 quarters that employees work for you. Okay? Or worked and paid into the system. So when you go to 91 days, they're now on your dime. You're into the next quarter. So make your decisions. If you really want to extend somebody's probation, you think you can save them, do it. But understand that that's a bottom line piece. Okay? Unemployment will hit your bottom line. Make sense? Okay. I know it's not all in here. I'm bouncing around a little bit, but you see on pages the employment laws that we have to get into. Then on page 11, and I have this broken out by numbers. Okay? What does this mean to me? So I talk about equal employment opportunity laws, right? The Civil Rights Act of 1964 is amended, which is our landmark protections. You can get a job regardless of your physical characteristics, basically. Well, you have to have 15 employees, and a lot of you don't have 15 employees. So they couldn't bring a charge through the EEOC. They could try, and then we'd show payroll and say, well, we only have 4 employees. Okay? So it wouldn't be under their purview. But then it goes to the state level. So I'm just giving you federal level information here. And in the states, every state's a little bit different as to the size. Okay? It might be 3 employees, might be 5 employees, might be 1 employee, as long as you're in business. All right? So these are your job protections, 1 through 14 employees you've got there. Those are the things that come into play. OSHA record keeping, then 11 to 14 employees. When you get over 15 but under 20, you get into the Civil Rights Act, among others. Does that make sense to you? Mm-hmm. Okay. I mean, I could spend time on the don't ever worry about the polygraphs. If you ever want a polygraph employee, call me first, okay? And I'll talk you out of it. So, anything on there that you all might have a question about? The Uniform Services Employment Reemployment Act, that's anybody that's in the military with you or National Guard at the very bottom of that first section, 1 through 14. You've got to be very, very good with those folks when they take off for reemployment. Okay. So then you go to the next page, 20 or more, you got Age Discrimination Act of 1967, that's the 40-year-old. COBRA. COBRA has to do with your group health insurance. If you had group health insurance and somebody left you or you terminated somebody that had an opportunity to purchase it at your group health rates, you have to have 20 employees or more. 50 or more. Family medical leave, that's the big one. People say, well, why didn't you give them 3 months off for the birth of the baby? Well, I've got 5 employees, I'm allowed to replace that position. If I had 50 and somebody else could sit and, you know, move into the job to help out while they're gone, that's a whole different picture. Okay? And then 100 or more, we're not really having to worry about that. That's the WARN Act and the EO. So you all need to really, I imagine, look at the first page for the most part. Okay, but just understand there's a lot out there. Yes, ma'am.
So you say for federal contractors, the Drug-Free Workplace Act, but is that not in effect for?
Tell me which one
I
you're
mean,
looking at.
like for small businesses, you think that would be universal? I'm just
What?
wondering about all of these that you have under federal contractors.
Federal contractors are people that are businesses that have 50 or more employees and they have $50,000 or more in federal contracts. Okay.
Were you asking why the Drug-Free Workplace Act is not relevant for Yeah, I was kind of just wondering,
It's listed here, but not
Yeah.
employees of.
yeah.
Yeah, it's not required of you. It's not required of any business to actually have any drug policy. Now, you might do it to get your workers' comp adjusted down, to have a program in place.
Well, I'm just wondering, like now they're, how they're talking about legalizing marijuana
Yeah.
and that sort of thing, so it
Okay.
might be an issue later on, I don't know.
And
Well, I've kind of got a question on that. Doesn't something like drug or alcohol abuse, isn't that considered a medical problem? So, if someone's in treatment for something.
yeah, they're protected under ADA. If they come forward to you prior to them showing up at work drunk or high and say, I've got a problem, then we may talk about it. That's considered a disability under, as HIV is, under Americans with Disabilities Act. Okay, but they can't show up to work drunk. They can't show up to work in Colorado and get drug tested, even though it's legal in the state. You can't have it in your system or you can get terminated. So those people are walking a fine line. Okay. Other questions? Scaring y'all? No? I don't really mean to. I mean, it's the purpose of it. But, so the areas that I really want you to concentrate on when we talk about your biggest liability from an employer-employee standpoint in my eyes is always going to be the employees getting along, the EEO issues. Bullying in the workplace is not illegal, but it gets a lot of headlines these days unless somebody can make it about being a protected status. And that's what you got on the other pages. And that's what the kind of training we do with supervisors is like, let's make sure you're saying the right things and doing the right things in your discussions with employees, okay? And your hiring practices and your termination practices. All right. Questions? Okay. So I gave you what the executive order was. That's affirmative action right there. So Dutton Wagner, the egg farm, or the egg producers here in Abington, right? They sell eggs to two federal prisons. And they got over 50 employees, and they got over $50,000 in eggs. Okay, so they have to have this written, voluminous affirmative action plan. All right, you all done. Okay, I hope you do one day, but you don't. Okay. So recent updates, page 15, pregnancy discrimination. Y'all ever have an employee that becomes pregnant in the workplace? They changed the laws on this recently through this this lawsuit that went to the Supreme Court. It's called Young versus UPS, and basically it changed the provisions of how we deal with pregnancy in the workplace. It used to be that you treat a pregnant employee no different than you would somebody like me that came in that had a heart attack. You treat it as a short-term disability. Whatever you do for me, you do for her, and vice versa. And they changed the laws on this, basically saying, well, the Supreme Court's kicked it out, saying you don't need to relook at this. If you provide light-duty work for other people, like on workers' comp, and you all been in those places where we try to bring people back for light-duty workers' comp, if you do that for them, even though it's a work-related injury, now you have to provide it potentially to a pregnant employee. They need an accommodation to continue to work in the workplace. Okay, so just be careful with that. I have people who call and say, I want to terminate this pregnant employee, she's horrible and all this. I'm like, you said the wrong word, pregnant. I don't care how bad she is, you're going to get sued if you do something. Okay, try to work it with them. Okay, and I told you about the new white-collar exemptions, salary requirements. All right, we understand that. That'll be changing in 2016. And then finally, on page 21, sexual orientation, they have applied that transgender LGBT communities with regards to EEO legislation, sexual harassment, sexual discrimination. I can't tell somebody I can't hire them because of their gender. Well, sexual harassment and sexual discrimination now is based on orientation and lifestyle, and maybe who you associate with. Okay. If somebody can say, well, you terminated me because I like to hang out with my gay friends. So it's gotten very broad. So everybody's protected. If you call me and say, Joel, I want to terminate an employee, what am I going to do? I'm going to go through my list and say, how old are they? What's their skin color? Do they have any known disabilities that you're aware of? Okay. Male, female, that kind of thing. I'm going to go through the list. And then if you tell me, well, it's a 26-year-old, he just got a bad attitude, white guy. I'm going to say, well, he really can't go to the EEOC. Check a box. He's the one that's not protected.
But if you have progressive discipline, you can if you have,
Paper trail.
a paper trail with a progressive, discipline practice, you have actually built in some protection for yourself, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's a valid reason that you're firing them.
Absolutely. I will tell you though, you're gonna have it laid out perfectly for pregnancy, okay? I just got off the phone this afternoon with somebody that they were getting ready to displace a lady, poor performer. You know, it gets in the air sometimes. I think employees know something's going on. And she came in with her request for FMLA. I've got migraines and now I need intermittent leave. And that throws everything up in the air, even though they've got all the progressive discipline. And now I told them, I said, I want to see a paper trail of how you came to this decision. And if you can show me emails going back and forth that we're getting rid of this position on this date, we can say, then we can show that she can't make the case that you got rid of me because I filed FMLA. Make sense? So you have to have very strong documentation. Yes, sir.
On your progressive disciplinary action, do you need the employee to sign?
I would love for them to sign it if we do it the right way, you know, that they agree that they've got a problem and we've agreed on a plan, a performance improvement plan. But if they refuse to sign, we write down they refuse to sign. And then I know I've got an adversarial relationship and maybe we'll be working about it. So.
Just a comment, we used to use, just see what you think about this, with a Fortune 50 company that I worked for. In HR, we recommended that when you're having that conversation and documenting, that as part of the plan, that you have the verbiage similar to immediate and sustained improvement. So that you can't say you have to improve within X number of days, or you have to improve this piece. They improve it, and then a week later, they're back to the same behavior again, and you have to start the cycle over again with the timing. So we used to always say, you know, instead of David say, you know, consistent and sustained improvement.
I've never been a big fan of 30 or 90 days. You're on double secret probation.
Exactly. We stay away from that, because when you get past that 90 days, and that behavior happens, and you have to start the cycle all over again. But if you say sustained improvement in that area, and they improvement, and then, you know, they improve it, and they're that way for 30 days, and boom, they're back to the same behavior, you've got cause, you've got to document it.
It just kind of depends on the organization. So I can go to some of the manufacturers around here, and they allow poor attendance to fall off, you know, after 6 months if you show good work ethic for a while, and it starts falling off. It depends on the organization and culture, but yeah, good point. All right, so I've gotten through my first section. I've got 5 to go. We doing okay? All right, we're going to take a break in just a couple minutes, correct? Is it 7:15? All right. All right, well, let's talk about hiring. And I've given you some information here on hiring and just the value of hiring the right person. You know, I do training on discipline, employee discipline. And one of my questions on discipline is what's the best form of discipline? People say, well, it's punishment. You know, I'm an old school person. You can punish them and they'll get right. Or they say coaching and counseling, or they say I try to work with them, or whatever. But the reality is the best form of discipline is self-discipline, hiring the right people up front who'll never have problems on the back end. And that's the hardest part. Okay? So what I'm trying to provide to you all here is some good guide work in ensuring you're asking the right questions. Okay? And doing the right things and staying out of it. How do we source? The first piece is how y'all going to source employees as you grow. I mean, I'd love to have a friend of a friend. I mean, that's great, isn't it? Somebody that has good work ethic, that's a good employee for you. It's free. You don't have to get on Career Builder or Indeed or something like that. Job posting internally, university co-op programs, government agencies. You know, if you're a federal contractor, you're required to go through like the Virginia Employment Commission. Which has anybody had any luck with the Virginia Employment Commission? Have you tried it?
Yes.
Yeah, it can be a challenge, okay? And then other employment services. But again, online, Indeed.com is a great approach if y'all have used that at all. Craigslist is a great approach these days. Newspaper is probably not as strong as it once was, but in some communities it's still a great approach, depending on where you're at. You know, if you're in Bluefield, you might need to use the newspaper. Because you've got people that do not look at the internet still, particularly, you know, for non-skilled, unskilled individuals. Okay, let's get through a couple more and we're going to take a break. Personal networking, raise your profile. Y'all are doing that. It's just obvious by the 5 presentations that I watched that we're working on profiles, driving sleek trucks around, right? Okay. recruiting online and then job fairs. And I do not have a dislike for job fairs. I think they're a great approach. So screening tools. How do we screen and how do we do this? And so I'm providing you some information here, some do's and don'ts. The application for employment, of course, we've got that piece I've given to you. Having a scripted interview, okay? Really planning out what you want to ask and trying to identify what you're looking for. And there's something I would encourage you all to look at. It's just called behavioral-based interviewing. All right? Google it. Learn it. Why do we do credit checks at banks? When I go to the bank and I want to get a new truck, why do they ask for my credit report? What does it indicate to them?
Responsibility. We're gonna follow through with what you say we're gonna do.
Is it, what happens if I have a catastrophic injury and I can't pay the loan back? Right? It's the best they've got to make a decision. It's risk management. And so behavioral-based interviewing, there's a process there about asking about past performance on jobs that relate to your current job, not hypothetical questions. Okay, so I would encourage you all to look at that, try to get some questions. You know, it could be, you know, I work in nursing homes sometimes. Well, if you're a CNA, what's one of the critical functions of that job? One of the grossest functions is bathing, soiled sheets, that kind of thing. Tell me about a time that you've actually had to deal with this. Well, with my grandmother, took care of her. Well, that's what I want to know. Okay? Maybe they'll be successful with me. I don't want to have a hypothetical to say, well, how would you handle this? Make sense? How would you handle an irate customer? Well, I think this is what I do because I saw it on TV. I prepped for this, you know, for you. Now, tell me about a time that you had to deal with an irate customer and how'd you handle it? What worked, what didn't work? Make them think about it. So, behavioral-based interview, I would encourage that piece as part of your interview. Reference checks, I've talked about it. Background checks, I'm a big believer of those, and assessment tests, depending on what you're looking for. There's a variety of skills-based tests, personality tests, among other things. So,
it sounds like you're, I know that some people like to play the whole, here's a scenario game. It sounds like you're pushing away from that. However, some of the universities I've worked at, when they're hiring a new employee, as part of the application process, they're asked to teach something. So would it be out of line if I'm interviewing a candidate and say, all right, say I don't understand this topic. Can you explain it to me?
Sure. Okay, absolutely. I don't have a problem with it. Hey, if I got somebody that's going to be a kayak instructor, I want to throw him out in the water and see what he's doing. You know, do a roll and all that stuff. I mean, you can do that. If it's a physical job, I want to see him lift some stuff. Okay? Just be careful on assessment tests. If you're doing something like, you know, write a paragraph out for me or do some mathematical work in accounting or something, you might want to pay for a validated test that shows it doesn't have a disparate impact on certain groups.
Well, I would be hiring teachers. I'd like to be able to see.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, but there's certain things you might need to be careful with. Okay, let's take a break. Is that all right? Okay, good.
Sandy said no breaks.
No break. No break for you.
No break.
There's soup for you.
You eat game like today.
There's soup for you.
That's good. I don't like soup.
Soup
Break now.
Actually, she's a chocolate Nazi.
Where's Kathy? Is she still going on vacation? How long is she home?
You can't find him around here.
How long is she going to be gone?
Here.
I know, you're always here. So, I guess if I go bathroom, you're probably in there cleaning it after we leave.
No, somebody else does that. I'll be vacuuming maybe in there. Because we have the new knowledge tomorrow, though, on tourism management.
I would like to come today if I wasn't working.
I went to last year's, really did a good job. Well, both of us did, really good job.
I take that vacation and,
No, which one?
I went to
He
one.
did one of these
Kevin
over,
Costine.
Kevin did a similar session, but it was over at the
Higher ed.
Higher Ed Center.
Thank you, these are so cute.
At least you waited until you voted.
You did a,
How did you do that when you pushed it out? I want to make it. Okay.
Well, isn't that special?
And then,
And they make great frisbees.
they do.
They make great frisbees.
Where did you get these, Marla?
A buddy of mine does that stuff.
That is so
And,
cool.
yours is the business that I had the idea
Did she
for.
not do a good job today? Great job.
Okay.
I was hoping she was gonna sing her song for us again.
Yeah, she didn't bring her guitar tonight.
Huh?
Marla?
She didn't bring her
I know, I love that.
I wanted you
I
to
was
sing
gonna
your.
bring in the strum it one time ago. I had 3 minutes. I can't.
Yeah, that was my favorite presentation. But anyway, Belinda, I had asked her, to come up here. I said, you'll get a lot out of it, you'll get a lot out of it. You know, and it's hard for, she's shy to come the first time. And so Sue said, you've got to go. She said, I'm just gonna make you go. Belinda's like, no, you're so nice. And Casey, she went and asked her about, you know, because we got some problem employees down there. She said, she said, is it just me or does everybody have problem employees? And Casey said, oh, yeah.
That's part of it.
Delicious cupcakes.
Oh, marketing.
That's her.
My boss is calling. Serious, that's why I made a point of telling her.
Because I believe.
I'm planning to if things go well.
I believe I can say. You, she goes, I'm gonna present tonight. You come. Said, this is your I support you.
Really? I mean,
Go
the
do
rest
it,
of it I'll be
so.
working, but not quite a
Do it well.
I did not know you could move into the kitchen. And she'll handle it. Is it for the townhouse real long? That's a nice kitchen.
No, but it's coming up. I have people.
Is there a restaurant too?
Well, yeah, I called up to
They buy your
the,
stuff?
one of our mentors up in Buchanan, Twin River Outfitters. And he told me today, he's coached us through a lot. And he said, well, I haven't any problem getting it. He said, the James River, I got plenty of water. I'll send some your way. I've got people that want to go, but it's just not real good.
She does look like your husband. He's good though. I was looking at her in the picture when you were in the campaign, the two of them, and I thought, gosh, she looks just like you in that picture. Do other people tell you that?
I'm starting to hear that she's turning towards me.
She probably will change. Yeah, my answer is yes. I wish we were close to something. To where, like, if we wanted to have a birthday party down there, I could get your cupcakes. I'd have to drive an hour. And an hour back. Unless I just knew I was going to town and somebody was coming.
If she likes you, she'll deliver.
Yeah, I can see her driving out to Mendota.
See as you drive by my place.
Absolutely. You can come kayak with me any day you want. Yeah. Woo! Yeah, I know. I told Mike, I said, let's take those interviews and slide down that hill. So he was like, he is such a small sport. He researched, he says, those aren't the right inner tubes. And I was like, who cares? Those whole intakes are popping anyway, huh? We're going to, well, the Jacksons, the 26th, we just got those the week after 4th of July. So we're going to use them. We were going to get rid of the old towns because we didn't really need them. And we told Jackson that we would replace them, but we didn't tell them the time frame. So we didn't lie, but we didn't, and we didn't imagine that we need them, but we do need them. And until we absorb all of this buying, all this frenzy we have this summer, unless there's something wrong with it. We're going to buy more Jacksons, we're going to buy more kayaks, but we're not getting rid of anything.
Yeah, I remember when we were doing last challenge, I was talking about buying kayaks, and Mike was like, kayak, better use kayak.
Yeah, so we never sell them. They'll be so beat up.
You go like up to Alvarado and like kayak now with some of our neighbors.
And you probably would like a recreational kayak right now.
Yeah, I don't want the ones where you put your feet in.
That's a lot. Yeah, we can use it that. It's about $50. So, yeah. Just sit down where I'm trying. Load it up on the table back. We wouldn't care. Keep it for a weekend.
You'd be like, we had 2 people.
The way it works, rarely are all of them out at one time. It's the rotations, how we're using them. They're out in a day, but some of them are coming home while others are going out, while others are in the middle. Yeah, so it's a rotating. Rarely could we ever say we have all 40 out on the river, but we have all 40 in rotation.
Yeah.
So.
Did you get a sign? Sorry.
Did you lose anybody else? We put no. In fact, we made our own sign, hung it off of the Bridge. But they cut it. The last day on Labor Day, they took all the signs down. Yeah, which I thought was nice that they took. Let us have them all summer long. And so we're getting so now we have to regroup. Are we going to try it again?
You can get mine.
I know. They were. You already done it too.
I do it all the time.
Do you?
Yeah.
You still do it?
I haven't been fined, but I was told I could be.
That's what we're pleading ignorance.
I'm working on it. It's an expense.
What's that?
Well, we're planning on putting a sign out on each one. Around $3,000 a year.
You need to share it. You could have an alpaca riding a kayak.
Because I fall under attractions, they fall under food. It's 2 different times.
Oh.
But I actually had a kid out of the farm. She said, you know, you're waiting for the truck stop to clean it.
Yeah.
Yeah, may get a little cheaper. Just put them out.
I just cannot quit.
They're working pretty quickly on that.
Yeah. Yeah, I want
Oh, I'm sorry.
She smacked me with it too, so. We'll take anything away from you.
I know. I didn't know my power. I guess I got wadded up into that little thing. That is the coolest little thing. I didn't. I left it at home. I can bring it next week, but I worked all day. I barely had a...
2 demerits.
Barely. I barely got here.
Been doing your homework.
I know.
You can scan it.
And I won't get ready to go to Pennsylvania anymore, so while you're here.
Yeah, I had to be guys to tell babysitter at work. But I can
We're going through interviews tomorrow. I'll take it out when people talk about what the job are. This is probably the coolest thing in the world.
Here's what's the other business. Just doing the fun stuff that I do place on the merch, and here's the theater that I have design for you to get for, you know, if at any point you want to talk to me about it, that would be great.
What's our sign? Can you tell?
For a small fee, we need to sit down. No, seriously, it's I build it from the hook line, and then if you're interested in it, I build the art, and then if you're interested in it, I can either sell you the idea, or I can create the whole thing for you, and you're good to go. It's a very minimal fee. It's just, once I create them, I copy it.
Start texting, start living.
No, mine is for you, and I try to work towards your business name or something to do with your business. So, like everybody has the saddle faster out here, banjos, you know. But I don't know. It's just an idea I had. Karen went for 3 of the ones I gave her. I gave her like 5, and because that's the only way I think. You know, I don't read that stuff from my mind. And and they're all 3 completed. So last week. So, but just as
I do. I just have no power.
You'll need to talk to my guy.
Hey, just buzz off. Buzz off. You give me 2 of these now.
When the sign on the highway, northbound and southbound, and then at the bottom of the give me a sign that says this way, so many miles. And then when you
If anybody wants your ad in that program, give it to them tonight if you can't develop it those right now, so that's all
Sign
we
there,
have.
and one at each, and then one at the end of our street. Each one of those are $150 a year. And $150 a piece to have them made.
Oh, gosh, does the state promote to this?
Subcontractor for the state.
For the state?
That's the
for
problem,
state
is
to
the state outsourced it. Now, it's one company in the whole state of Virginia doing it.
Could you not put the sign yourself on their place and save the money? The market aisle.
I could.
It's a page just like this, you'll get the whole page.
If I approach a farmer that's got land right there with an opening, I could possibly put, something there, but then I've got to get variances from the county. I found a sign company called, that's what I did. I found a company called Signs on the Cheap. It's online. They're cheap, chloroplast. I had them made up, and I think I had so many with the arrows, right, so many with the arrows, I ordered them.
You still got a lot of signs?
I still have a few in the store. I just pulled one out and bought it. The ones in the, into the operators, they take so many things.
So you'd have to actually buy that.
They take them down all the time.
And if they take it down, you that's fine,
No, the crew that comes through and cleans up trash and goes and stuff, they just come down. And I even bought heavy duty zip ties, pull them tight and try and make it different.
So I've got 10 pages on hiring. It makes a bulk right here. You can see the importance of it. In my mind, if we do a good job on the front end, then we're going to have all the problems on the back end. And so I thought I'd just give you all some tips and pointers on the hiring piece. And so the piece here we're going to walk into is what to look for on the application. I already told you that it needs to be completed. Make sure they complete it in ink and not in pencil. Okay. So they can't say, well, you changed it. No, I've had that issue pop up before. But make sure they complete it as much as possible. If they leave something blank, spend some time looking at it. Why didn't you complete this piece? Okay. Why didn't you tell us about criminal record? You just left it blank, yes or no. Okay. There should be some questions that should be yes or no. And then you should have some variable-based questions. If you get somebody that says, do you have a criminal record? And they go, well, that's a good story, then we got a problem. Okay, it should be a quick yes or no. Are you eligible to work? Are you eligible, we're allowed to ask how old you are with regards to if you're gonna drive a truck, for example, and your insurance says you gotta be 25. It's job related, we're allowed to ask that question at that point, okay? But most of the time we're not. We can't ask when they graduated high school anymore. We just ask if they graduated or have an ED. So, these are the things to look for, and I'm on page 28, okay? We want to know what kind of wages they've made, what kind of education they got, did they list some references? Anybody with good work character, work ethic, should have some decent references. You may or may not have this. In regards to the armed services, maybe you know this or not, but you're not allowed to ask the disposition of an individual when they left the military. And this has changed over the last few years because we've had so many wounded veterans coming home and they're not protected, they had medical leave, so we're not allowed to ask that. So, used to be we wanted to know if they had dishonorable discharges. We just need to learn what they learned. What kind of training did you have? Make sense? Okay. We're looking for employment gaps, dates of employment. I'm going to talk about that one again on the next slide. Reason for leaving previous jobs. I love what people write down sometimes because they'll be deadly honest. I got an argument with my supervisor. I didn't like the rules and policies, whatever it might be. And I'm like, well, what makes you think it's any better here? Okay. So make sure that they complete that part. Of course, the criminal record, and make sure they sign the thing and date it. All right. Now, at the bottom, if you were to look at the application I gave you, if you were to use that application, it has an active period on. I put in 90 days for y'all's purposes. That means that application is good for 90 days. And if they wanted a job, they come back in 4 months, say, well, why didn't you hire me? Well, we didn't have an opening, but we just had one. Your application was only good for 90 days. Okay? They have to come back and reapply. All right? You can do 45 days, you can do 30 days. 90 is a pretty good number. It shouldn't be an issue, but the reality is if you didn't have an active period on your application, then it has to be valid for 1 year. And you can imagine thinking about people you might have interviewed in January that might have been pretty capable, but you just didn't like the person, you found out they had some poor character issues in the community, and they come back and you hire in July. You know, why didn't you hire? Why didn't you interview them? Well, forgot about you, all honesty. Okay. Now we need to retain. Technically, we're supposed to retain applications for a year. All right. So once you get an application, hold on to it for a while. Okay. Questions? All right. Red flags. So here are the things that I would just encourage you to look at. You know, dates. Most of the time I'm looking at months, rounded months. I worked at this place from 2006 to 2009, 2009 to 2012. Look for months. You know, when did they leave? And I used to be more of a hard critic on this until we had the, you know, our economy collapse. Of why, you know, why do you have this lapse? You obviously lost your job. What was the problem? I want to know if somebody doesn't, you know, what did you do for those 6 months that you were laid off? Well, I was cutting grass. Okay, well, that's good. At least I have a conversation. Doesn't need to be on the resume, but look for those things, okay? I want to make sure they weren't incarcerated, to be perfectly honest. So look for rounded off days. Non-specific educational information, that shouldn't be a big issue, but sometimes people don't give you too much there. Reasons for leaving past jobs, it should be a red flag. I mean, if they're honest with you, and they tell you that I have problems with policies or that type of thing, or my manager, then that's a good discussion about what was that style like, because my style might be very similar. Lack of salary progression. I've got somebody that holds jobs, but they're going up and down on their income. It's a good question. You made $8 here, $9 there, you're back to $8.50 at this place. You know you have somebody that may not have the greatest work ethic, they're just getting by. Okay, and that holds true as well for the job duties and responsibilities. Okay, they just have not progressed in their career, particularly if somebody that by the time they move in their late 20s, they should show some skills and some work ethic there. Okay, and again, gaps in employment history kind of go to the rounded off dates. Again, look for the gaps and ask about it. Okay, and then overly vague job duties and job titles if they list them. If you don't understand what the job title is they gave out, because everybody's got funky job titles these days, you know, ask about it. You know, an HR manager is not an HR manager. We recruit for HR managers sometimes. And I'll get an office manager in a doctor's office that touched the files. And it's not the same thing as a very high-level HR manager. Okay? So you need to dig into it a little bit. But just challenge it a little bit, okay? And you do the same thing for the resumes. Because statistically, resumes are 30% blown up, false, whatever you want to call it, over-exaggerated. Okay? So I know in some cases we do not get applications, particularly for high-level people in larger organizations, but I think it's very important to get as much as possible. Okay, so let's talk about the interview from them. Here's 6 things not to do. All right, first thing is don't talk too much. You know statistically how much you should talk in an interview? 20%, exactly. So if you're asking open-ended questions, behavioral-based questions, they're going to spend a lot of time talking. All right? You should have some yes/no questions, and those are just getting through the very basics. You know, what kind of time do you need? You know, between if we were offering you a job today, how much time do you need? You know, what kind of notice do you need to give your employer? Well, I don't have to give them any. Well, that probably tells me that they can't wait to see him go. You know, but maybe 2 weeks or a month. But, you know, some of those things. Yes or no? Are you over 18? Can you provide documentation? Yes or no? Criminal record? Yes or no? Okay. Don't tell them too much about your needs. Don't tell them exactly what you're looking for in the interview, because they're going to parrot back to you exactly how they can fill the bill. Be a little bit out there. Don't withhold approval or create stress. I think in these days and times, there's no reason not to have a good discussion with somebody. Let's just find out if this is going to be a good fit for us. You're going to learn about us, and we're going to learn about you. Okay? High-stress interviews anymore, unless you're in a high-stress sales culture, that kind of environment, probably have no place. And the reality is that these people may become your clients one day or refer people to your business. So we want them to have a good feeling for us. And people turn down jobs all the time. And we've got a tighter economy right now, and there's more people, or less qualified people looking for jobs, I guess. So we want to do a good job there. Don't do it all yourself. Try to get extra eyes on it. I mean, I do help occasionally screen for executive level positions. And invariably, the person I think that the board is going to hire for a credit union or a community bank or something is not the one I selected in my mind. Okay, so if I did it all myself and said, here's your key person, I was probably failing. So make sure you try to get somebody else's opinion on it. You know, don't be too quick to judge. It's a tough one when they come in and they have all the appearance of, I'm just here because I needed to tell the Unemployment Commission that I had an interview. And I'm slouching, I'm not talking to you, I'm looking at the ground, my pants are hanging off my butt. Yeah, maybe I'm going to be a quick judge there. And then finally, don't try to remember everything. Take notes. Now, as an aside to this, what I encourage you to do is, if you're going to take notes, it's just kind of appropriate to tell them, you know, I'm having a lot of interviews and I'm going to have to take some notes. It's just a normal thing. And, you know, if I have to stop you for a minute or I need to catch up, just let them know you're taking notes. Okay? Questions?
How do you feel about hiring on a single interview versus multiple?
Well, I think it depends on the job. Okay? I know that there's some, it depends on the skill set that you need for the position and the turnover that you may have. So it's a cultural thing. I mean, how many interviews do I need if I'm going to be washing dishes at one of the restaurants versus maybe a higher level position there? Okay.
I just always felt like many positions I looked at, first interview is you're getting to know somebody and most people are nervous. You want them relaxed because you want them to talk to you. That first one's a tough one.
Yeah, we want to make them feel at ease, and that's one of the things I say. Now, I will tell you, if y'all ever hire, you know, a high-level general manager or partner, something that's going to come in, and they're married, I would try to drag the spouse into it if there is a spouse as well, you know, for dinner or something, so you really get to know them, because that will have a huge impact. You know, if this is going to be a key employee to you down the road. Okay? Yes.
As far as making them comfortable, I'm trying to recruit a teacher who just over the break said, invited me over to his house for coffee.
Okay.
Is this appropriate? Now, this is fairly personal business. I have to go to people's homes all the time. The employee wants to have an interview at their home. What do you think?
I don't have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with that. You're getting to know them on a personal level.
Well, then, he has a farm. I teach people how to grow food.
There you go.
It seems appropriate.
Yeah, I have no problem with it. Now, if it's of the opposite sex, attractive and all of that, maybe I would be, you know what I'm saying, I'd be, you know, just hash it out just a little bit.
All right, hurry to get over there.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important. You know, I mean, at the end of the day, this is big money for us. This is a big commitment, both in time and personality and their skill set. And so we want to try to have as best fit as we can. Okay. So, now, here's all your legal questions coming up. And this is not something I put on the slide, but if you go to page 2930, beginning on page 30, I guess. 31, yeah. 31. Y'all got this with you? So, do's and don'ts. And I'm not going to walk through all these. I just want you to see what we would walk through. And I usually quiz after this. But so you have the subject of what I'd like to maybe know about in the middle. You know, where do you live? Can I ask that question or not? Is it legal or illegal? Pre-employment, is it acceptable or not? So I can ask somebody where they live. Okay? That's fine. Birthplace. Does birthplace have anything to do with their performance on the job? Okay, you see where I'm going? No. Okay? It'd be interesting conversation and who you know and all that kind of stuff. But it really has nothing to do with it. Age, you got to be very limited if it denotes somebody over 40. Okay? Race and color, there's just not a question there that you can ask. Okay? Religion, and I talked about this in the beginning, can you meet the work schedule? Okay? Sex or gender, can you meet the work schedule? Would I like to know that you have 4 kids at home and you homeschool them all and you can't meet the work schedule? Yeah. But I can't ask that question necessarily. I can ask, can you meet the work schedule? You know, we do worry about that sometimes. We got a single parent, and they've got kid issues and child care issues. I would want to know all that, but they can bring it up, but I'm not going to ask them. Okay? So, can you travel alone? I mean, I think it's a good question, but it is sexist. Okay, it comes up. I was going up to Lewisburg, Virginia several years ago. We had a young consultant with us, and you know, we traveled in our business, and we hired a gal, Carol was her name, and did not interview her husband, and I wish we had after this. But anyway, we're driving up to West Virginia, you know, and that we hammer it. Can you travel overnight? Can you travel overnight? Can you travel for a few days at a time on occasion? Yes, yes, they always say yes, and then you actually take them on the road. I'm sitting in my old Honda Accord, and in the middle is her purse is just right next to us, and I see the butt of a pistol sticking out of it.
Nice.
I'm like, is that a pistol? I don't really care that much, but it's just interesting to me. She goes, oh yeah. So we're going to West Virginia. My husband was worried about it. You know, I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm gonna have problems, and we had problems. So, okay. National ancestry, national origin, health conditions. We can ask somebody if they can do the job with or without accommodation, and you perform the functions. Now, somebody does not have to disclose to you that they have a disability at any point in time, until they actually have the need because they can't perform the job because of the disability. Okay, which is kind of an interesting piece. Why didn't you tell us this up front? You know, why, you know, the young lady that comes in, you hire her, and then a month later she says, you know, I'm 5 months pregnant. You know, we could have asked that. We get mad about it. We can't say anything about it because we know she's going to be gone. Okay? We hired her on her qualifications, so same thing. Photographs. Can we take photographs from employees or applicants? Be very careful. You take one of one, take it for all. Okay? Again, citizenship, work days and schedules, education. You see the things you can ask on the left side. And I kind of glossed over those, but they're there. Organizations, I'll stop on that one just for a second. Be careful about how they respond to these. I'd like to know what professional organizations, if any, that you belong to. If they go down the path and say, well, I'm Knights of Columbus, well, that's a Catholic organization, and they don't get the job, they could potentially make the claim that, well, I disclosed to you that I was Catholic, and of course everybody here has got fearing Protestants, and that doesn't work. Okay, that's why you can hire them. So just try to keep it job related. Have you ever been arrested? We don't ask that question. We can ask about convictions, not arrests. We have to have a disposition. Okay, so that's that little quirk there. Relatives, you're allowed to ask that. You know, Virginia's interesting. Virginia, beyond the EEO laws, the federal EEO laws, marital status is protected in the state of Virginia, the Commonwealth. And I don't know why they decided to pick that one. But you go to West Virginia, and creed is protected within the state. And I have to go back and look up what creed means. Okay, so certain states protect certain things. And then finally, you've got the last pieces there. Okay, no case of emergency, but just make it about, if you can ask the question to yourself and say, this is job related, then it's okay for the most part. You couldn't say, I'm not going to hire that young minority at the grocery store because my clients may not like it. Okay, you got to base it on, not that I'm saying anything, but pointing at you, but that would be, sometimes that comes up. I don't know how they'll fit. Yes?
Can you ask about personal habits, like smoking?
It depends on the state. But yes, you can say this is a smoke-free environment. Okay? Which means the entire campus. You can tell them about weapons, your policy on weapons. Yeah, that's changing state to state as well. Yes?
What about if in my handbook I said that I, maybe it's a med spa or something, and I didn't want any body art.
Okay.
Or I just didn't want it. I have in my handbook that has to be covered at all times. Can I, how does that work into that?
Yeah.
I noticed that, and I was at Cheddar's the other day, and somebody had a bunch of Band-Aids on, and I was like, oh, what happened? She had really was covering up her, they required that she cover up her tattoos.
Yeah, so
how do you-
yeah, okay, it's a good question. When it comes to the appearance of your employees, you're purchasing not only what they do, but how they look for you.
Right.
You can have the dress codes, you can have hairstyles, you can say women, you can only have 2 earrings in, no more than that. If you've got the whole row going around the ear, pull them out.
As long as I'm consistent.
As long as you're consistent,
And
it's not illegal. Now, if they can base it on any cultural, any religious, like if you hired a Rastafarian with the dreadlocks, you'd have to work around that because that's religious based. There's some religions with beards and that kind of thing. So that's where Abercrombie and Fitch really got in trouble on their deal. It was the young lady that came in to apply for a job and she wore the the scarf, and they said that doesn't meet, the general manager, the regional manager just didn't know what he was doing, or she didn't know what she was doing. We said, no, we can't have that person here. Well, it was protected by Rivers Police, but yeah, you can purchase whatever.
So I can.
They've got state troopers now, they've got to cover their tattoos down their arms. Okay.
So a poor officer in the middle of August, had a black uniform on, button down.
Yeah.
All in sleeves, poor boy was sweating bad.
Yeah.
He had sleeve tattoos.
Yeah. So again, we're pursuing behavior. Yes.
You mentioned minorities a couple times, but I mean, in this country now, wouldn't you say whites are pretty much a minority with the 20+ million illegal aliens and?
Now you want me to get political.
You don't want to go there. I know. I was just sniffling.
No. Right, well, I will tell you where people like me, my look stand, is that we make 66% of the population. 33% of the population, there's 105 million minorities in this country. We just don't have it down the center of the Appalachians right now, but that'll change. And I will tell you this, that as of last year, 1 out of every 2 kids under the age of 5 in the country is a mixed race or minority. So you just take that out a generation or two. 2042, the Bureau of Labor Statistics predicts that we'll be a super minority of 42 to 46%. So, yeah. So there you go.
So everybody's going to be a minority.
At some point. Now, also remember that the Caucasian community has about 98% of the wealth in the country. So there's that. Then you can start going down that path of redistribution and all of that. So, yes.
What professional can help us create an employee handbook?
That was the last thing I talked about.
Sherm.
Sherm's not bad. You can do it online. We can help. There's expense to it though. So you may just want to find a good friend that's got a decent little handbook and borrow from. Okay. All right. Questions? Okay. So, actual interview, just again, some points here as you move through this. Make sure that you try to control the interview, build rapport, study the resume or the application before they come in and try to find something on it and say, I see you drove from Chilhowie and it's a 45-minute drive or wherever it is, and how was the drive? Just something. Personalize it. Control the interview means tell them what they can expect, kind of like the training. You all know exactly what time y'all are getting out of here tonight, right? When everything's occurring. Same thing with that. I typically, if I'm doing multiple interviews, or if I'm not, and I'm just concerned that I don't know this person, I will probably fit to them and say, I've got multiple interviews, and if we can get through what we need to in 30 minutes, great. If we can take it 45, that's great as well. But we make that. So if you've got that sad sack in front of you, you're like, God, why am I interviewing this person? You can kind of dial that down pretty quickly. Again, make sure you ask open-ended questions. Tolerate interview silence. This is a skill that is learned. Okay? We have a tendency, it's human nature, to save somebody when we have dead silence after we've asked a question. Okay? Just stay quiet. If at 20 seconds, let's say I ask the question, tell me about your greatest professional mistake. Tell me about one time you made a mistake on your job, or in your last job. Well, nobody ever wants to talk about that, do they, right? So the employee's going to sit there, or the applicant's going to sit there, and they're going to hem and haw and think about it. You're going to dive in after 20 seconds, because that's when it starts getting uncomfortable. When you do that, just simply say, I know it might be, it takes a little while to recall. Just take your time, okay? And what do we ask about? The tail end of that thing is what you learn. We've all made mistakes, right? So what you learn, okay? But anyway, tolerate interview silence. I promise you it will work. Obviously take notes. Try to seek contrary information, like the question I just asked, because they're going to be all glowing. If they say I've never made a mistake, then this is probably not the person you need to hire, okay? Again, get behavioral examples, and again, I encourage you on that piece to look it up. And be prepared to answer questions yourself. Well, how much does job pay? Right off the bat. Okay, maybe that's what we need to talk about right off the bat. Okay? But be prepared to answer that. What kind of insurance? What's vacation look like? If they start to ask all those benefits questions right up front, we might have an issue too with likely. All right. So, the moment of final decision. Several issues to keep in mind. What was your overall impression of the applicant? Can you work with this person? Will they be a good fit? Have all employment and personal references been verified? I mean, I encourage you on that. Try to do references as best you can, particularly y'all are small organizations, and you're taking a risk on these individuals much different than a large organization that can probably handle a failure in the hiring process. Does the person have the necessary skills? Or are you going to have to provide some extra training? Okay. Will this person add balance to your team? Will this person add more depth? And is there enough supporting documentation to make a valid decision to hire this person? Or are you going on a gut feeling? I just like this person. One of the things we get into is personality profiles. Anybody ever done a Myers-Briggs or a DISC profile, right? Some of those things. What kind of personality are you? Well, you're going to find certain people with certain personalities interview very well. And you're going to like them, but at the end of the day, they don't have the detailed orientation to do the job. They got a big personality. They're not going to be happy sitting in the accounting office doing accounting because they want to get out and talk to everybody. So make sure you know what you're dealing with, the personalities for the positions. Okay? All right. Questions? You find some of this relevant? Okay. And then we provide you some information. You give them a job offer. Now, how do you make the offer? Do you make it over the phone, or do you follow up with mail? Do you send them an official letter? That's kind of up to your environment. I think a lot of times we just call them and then have them, in businesses. But others, depending on the position, and if it's a key position, you'll probably want to put together an offer letter. And you certainly can Google something like that, or you can use some of this information about the basics. Just make sure that you don't put anything in there that can construe it as a contract, all right, on the offer letter. Make sure it's at will. We do have some at will language in the offer letter. Okay. All right. So this is some of the information that you might put in your offer letter, which is on page 35. Okay. All right. What about new hire orientation? This is the next step. I don't care if you're just hiring your first employee. I want them to feel loved that first day. We've all had our first jobs. We've had our second jobs. I remember my first job and how much love I felt. Give me free t-shirts and the coffee cups and all that stuff, among other things. Take me to lunch, introduce me to people, show me where the restrooms were, how the time records, time cards work, et cetera, et cetera. Have a plan in place. Something. And it may be you're on the road going to Charleston. Hop in the car with me. Let's go. But let's go, and let's have a good day of it and try to put a positive on it, okay? And how excited you are to have them, all right? So, the first day, friend or stranger. And you all have seen plenty of businesses, they're strangers. It's probably like being in the military. A lot of the coworkers don't want to even talk to them, see if they make it through the first 6 months, and if they make 6 months, they might learn their name, okay? So, what is orientation? Now, I will talk to you about this for a second. Orientation is a little bit different than onboarding. Orientation is where we go through the basics. Here's all your documents, here's our handbook, here's our health insurance, here's our work rules, et cetera, et cetera. That's one thing. But onboarding really is working with that employee over a period of time. Okay? And it's not 1 day or 2 days, but checking back week to week for the next 30 to 90 days to make sure they're really getting it and evaluating it. Okay? Does it make sense? I would encourage you to think about the onboarding process. And then if there is a plan for formal instruction, how you do that. Okay, and I have provided, I think, a new hire checklist in here. An orientation checklist on page 38 that you might want to walk through with somebody, how we got to where we are, history of the company, services provided, location of organization, et cetera, et cetera. Some of this may come out, obviously, in interviews. On page 39. So you can see you can spend a lot of time with this. And if you're a larger employer, you probably talk about location of restrooms and first aid room, and where's the nurse, and all that kind of stuff. So, okay. Questions? If anybody wants this in Word, because you want to take this apart and maybe use some of it, just email me and I'll shoot it to you in Word. Okay? And I sent it to Robin in PDF. So, I don't mind sharing it. I've given it to you once, you won't have to go back and transcribe anything. Okay? All right. So, performance management coaching. This is some of that soft skill stuff. gonna talk about performance management, discipline, and handbooks in the next 20 minutes, 15 minutes, okay? One of my training programs I do with EVAYs is a discussion about when we get frustrated with an employee, okay? And we turn to maybe more terse terms with them, more disciplinary issues, as opposed to, was that really a coachable event and an opportunity to nip something in the bud before it became a bigger issue? So know what a coachable event is versus a disciplinary issue. Does it make sense? So if somebody is required to come to work with safety shoes on, and they don't show up with their safety shoes, can I coach that? Can you?
Well, they can't be out on the floor. You might coach them to go back home and get their safety shoes.
That is a poor work habit. The only way I'd coach that is if they didn't know how to tie their shoe, and I can teach them how to do that. But there are certain things like showing up for work on time, that's not coachable. Coachable part would be to go home and show them how to set their alarm clock or their cell phone. So there are certain pieces, and that's 90% of the problems you have are about employees having poor work habits. Okay, so understand what's coachable and what's not. If I observe somebody doing something poorly on a machine they may be working on, I can coach that. I can observe their behavior and show them how to do it the right way. So just make sure what's coachable, what's trainable, and what's really just a discussion. I mean, how am I going to coach somebody that's showing up late? It's a discipline issue. Okay, so just sometimes I'll have people when it's a coachable event and somebody that just wasn't clear that they get a little too aggressive. Okay, all right. So that's the piece that I've got on page 40, and there's quite a bit of information there about coaching. But look for opportunities to coach. And when I talk about coaching, I'm talking about the basic stuff. Observe the behavior, see what they're doing, show them how to do it the right way, then have them redo it, and then give them feedback. Okay. Now some of it's maybe you, maybe a designee that does the work to help train and coach, but make sure you try to do that first. You all spend most of your time in directing work and coaching people and telling them how to do things. You should only spend a very little bit of time in discipline. Right? At the end of the day, I hope that's the case. All right. So constructive feedback. I just provide a little punch list down at the bottom about giving feedback to somebody about how they're doing, particularly if you have some issues with them. But state the constructive purposes of the feedback, why you're giving them some feedback, what you've observed, describe your reactions, how you feel about it. A little surprised you've been on the job for 2 years and you did that. Okay? Give the other person an opportunity to respond. When it comes to discipline and coaching, treat people like adults and give them an opportunity to tell you why it occurred. Okay? Now, if it's the third time you're having a discussion, you can get more aggressive with it. Does it make sense? Okay. Supervisor checklist for full performance appraisals. How many people in this room will do performance appraisals on employees? Handful of you. Okay. For the time being, a lot of you may not even have employees at this point. So what I've got on the pages 41 and 42 is just some reminders. Okay. Just reminders about preparing for it, making it, one of the biggest things with performance appraisals, if you're doing it and you actually tie it to some type of opportunity for increased advancement or monies, and we just say, well, we'll get to it. It's 3 months late, we'll get to it, and if we give you a raise, it'll be retroactive. Okay? How does that make somebody feel? It's one of the biggest areas of weakness in most organizations. I don't care what side you are. Okay? It's a morale issue. Do them on time. If you're going to do it, do them on time and do them right and prepared. And use them not only as a report card for the last period of 90 days to a year, whatever your period is going to be, but that should be half of it. The other half should be, what are our goals moving forward? And most of the time, it's just a report card to say, okay, here's what you did, and you get 20% or 20-cent increase. Let's talk about what you can do for us and how we can develop you and what you want from us.
Even if you don't have an increase tied to it.
I'd rather you didn't.
Yeah, I think a performance review, it's difficult to give negative feedback to anyone, but it's very seldom does an employee and their supervisor really sit down and have a heart-to-heart talk about expectations and good feedback and all those things. It never happens. It just never happens because usually the employer, their supervisor, is not comfortable conducting performance appraisal. And it's really, it's a loss. It's a really good opportunity to develop someone.
Well, not everybody's always rational either. That supervisor can give the employee a pretty good review, And then employees gonna see one little thing on it and just go ballistic, you know, and that's why they get gun shy.
Or they'll give, everything will be positive on the review, and then the supervisor will be whining about the employee later.
Exactly.
Because they're actually afraid to do a constructive, honest performance
Exactly.
appraisal.
Exactly. All right, so I just gave you a little bit there on the value of performance management. It was obviously 5 minutes on it. Discipline is a whole piece unto itself. With regards to actually having a discussion with an employee about disciplinary issues. We've done the coaching weekend, we've done the training, they're still not getting it, or they just really don't care about the business. Okay, they're not engaged. We want to make sure the characteristics of good discipline is that you're being fair with this individual, regardless of how much you may dislike them for what they're doing, that we can show that we have the same consistent practices with this employee versus somebody else that had the same issue with us. Okay, that we conduct ourselves without emotion. All right, we're just businesslike in it, that we're timely. If we got a problem, we need to address it pretty quickly and not wait 3 weeks. You've lost really the energy of the discussion. There should be an absence of surprise, which means that the employee should be aware of what the work rules and policies and procedures are. And if we can't say, if that employee is surprised, truly surprised, and we've done something, we've missed something on the front end. Okay? And the purpose of discipline is preventiveness. We don't want to discipline anybody, do we? All we're doing is correcting behavior for a smooth flow of our operations. That's all it is. Okay? Absence of blame. We're not going to blame the individual. Try to stay away from that. Don't make it personal, because once you do that, you're probably not going to get a signature to begin with on your write-up if you're doing a write-up. But let's just talk about the event. Well, you just don't like me. You've had it out for me since day one. No, it's just the work behaviors. Okay? And finally, and again, if I was probably a counsel or an attorney here, I'd probably put documentation at the top and work on the way down. Make sure you document it. Okay? Questions? All right. There's good narrative on this page for you. If you're going to talk to an employee, and if you can do this, and I know some of you may not be able to do it in a private office, but try to do it. There's a good punch list here. Don't talk about problems standing up. You get adversarial if you stand up. It's just more natural. Okay? Sit opposite the employee but not behind the desk. What does that mean to me? If I'm going to have a discussion with an employee, I'm probably going to sit cat a corner or a round table, but not, big me, little you type situation. All right? Whether you think about that or not, I'm bringing my office, I'm dropping the hammer. It could be adversarial. Don't start with an accusation. Don't start with chit-chat. How was your weekend? And then,
ruin their weekend.
Be businesslike. I brought you in here to discuss something very important. Okay? Don't make any wild promises. Don't try to be buddy-buddy with them. Make a sermon. Avoid prejudging the problem from your viewpoint alone. I tell people that, and 90% of the time we already know we got a problem. We don't need to get somebody else's opinion on it. But if you're not quite sure what's occurred, make sure you get somebody else's opinion on it. Obviously, don't undermine your ability to lead other people in case you have multiple employees by throwing your weight around and criticizing them in public. Be professional. Okay? If the tensions are high, either yourself or the employee, short of insubordinate behavior, take a break and come back to it. Okay? Make sure you listen. Share the blame if necessary. You'll probably know if there's any concerns about education or, was there training? Were we kind of ambiguous on the instructions we gave? If we were ambiguous, you can see their side of it. Then share the blame if necessary. But it's probably a rare event. Okay? Again, discuss the problem, not the employee. It's, you're not showing up for work on time. It's not you personally, but you've got this behavior that we don't like. Deal with the why did it occur, as well as the how. Remember, the purpose is to find a better way, and try to end on a high note. Let's get this behind us, and let's get back to work. I'll put it behind me. Okay? And there's different approaches to a new employee versus a more seasoned employee. All right, and then finally, termination. You can get challenged. We talked about this in the beginning. You can get challenged on your on how you separate with somebody. Now, layoffs are usually pretty typical. If you're seasonal, the kayaking, for example, is seasonal. We would know that we might be, letting people go in the early fall or whenever your season may be. Okay, but if it's because of performance, just know that we've got all these laws out there that somebody can challenge us on. This could be relatively rare. I would rather you not pay unemployment. That's probably one of the bigger ones that I've got. because you just didn't document as well as you could have and have the discussions. Virginia Employment Commission likes for you to have 3 conversations with that employee. And the second one, you know, a progressive discipline process, verbal, written, maybe another written, maybe send them home for a couple days without pay, termination. But on one of them, I want you to write down, you will be terminated the next time this occurs. Okay? If I call you, call me and say, well, I'll terminate this person, Joel, and I'm going to say, do they know? Well, they should know. We talked to them until we're blue in the face. I'm like, did you write it down? Did they sign off? Did they refuse to sign? Did you articulate? You'll win that case, typically. Okay? All right, so your termination for cause checklist is on page 46. And there's a gold standard here on this. Look at 13 on page 46. Will the termination be a surprise to the employee? In your heart of hearts, if I say, is John or Jane going to be surprised that you're separated with them this afternoon? And you say, yeah, it could be. We probably need to go back to the well one more time. Unless it's something so egregious, of course. But it's that kind of that Chinese water torture employee that's just slowly just beating us down. Okay, we might want to go to the well one more time. Because that's where you have problems. They'll say you weren't fair to. Okay? Number 12, should I try for a voluntary resignation? That means 2 things to 2 different people. One is, can I just ask for the resignation? This isn't working out to protect your employment record. We'd like you to resign your position. Sounds great, doesn't it? Except you can't get unemployment. But if you can't get unemployment, they're going to say you're going to have to fire me, boss. Okay? Or, the other way we look at it is some people will say, I'm going to make their life a living hell. I'm going to give them more duties, be on their back all the time, change their duties, and work them out. Okay? That's also a voluntary resignation. But they can get unemployment that way as well if they can show it was a constructive discharge. It's called constructive discharge, where you really make it very difficult for them. I just encourage you to be honest with somebody, work through the 3-step process, okay, and get them out. Okay. Rules to fire by on the following page. Be respectful. Make sure that you deliberated on it. Make sure the person's not surprised. Again, my gold standard here. Will they be surprised? Don't fire in anger. You should be satisfied you've done everything you can. At the end of the day, I just want you to say, we've done everything. It's this employee's fault. Okay. Make sure you meet with the employee. And there's a couple different things here that might be in my handout. But meet with the employee and recap the prior warnings. This one, I'd rather you have this discussion in the second to last, but the time before the termination. But just find out if there's anything, there's a disability, there's something going on with them that they cannot do their job. Are they not telling us something that we're not aware of? Okay? And then, because then it talks about, basically it says, hey, let's meet with the employee, then we'll go out in the hallway and talk about it, and then we'll come back in and drop the hammer. Okay? So I don't like that piece. I want to have this discussion earlier. Okay? But I leave this old slide, this is a kind of an old way of doing things, for that discussion. I'm very concerned about disabilities these days. It's the second largest class now, and it's probably going to be the largest class of charges and concerns we'll have in the workplace moving forward. Okay? Congress has changed how we look at ADA, and it's really wide open. And in this room, we got 22 people in here. I've probably got 5 that actually meet the definition of disability. Under ADA, we never know it until the wheels come off the employment relationship and they throw it out at us. Okay? So, if you decide to move forward, just make it quick. It should be a 5-minute process at most. If it's longer than that, they're talking to you, they're trying to talk you out of it, and bemoan how they're going to tell their spouse. Okay? Now, should I avoid terminating on a Friday or a day before a holiday? Does it matter what day of the week I terminate somebody? Yes. Okay. Now, Friday would make you think that they're not working on Saturday or Sunday. Okay? Now, this has changed because of the internet. Most people, we would used to say that because they had no recourse to go file for unemployment or start looking for new jobs. But the reality is, if I have a smartphone, I can start looking for a job right this second. Okay? So, if it's Tuesday morning, let them go on Tuesday morning. That's what works for you. Okay? Now, day before holiday, you might want to think about that just a little bit. Because other employees may see that. Regardless of how, I had a guy, and I'll just keep you about 2 more minutes, but I had I had a guy that was ripped off by employees before Christmas, $500. Two employees stole $500, and he knew it. And he was gonna terminate him on Christmas Eve, it was a Thursday. I was like, well, that's fine. But I said, you're gonna go to him on Thursday morning and terminate him and walk him out of the building, and you're not gonna be able to manage the grapevine with your other employees. He had probably 30 employees until Monday. So, you know, you gotta be political with that. And termination, I'd probably call the police too. Okay? All right, and finally, make sure you planned it out. I mean, these days and times with employees, have an idea of how they're gonna respond. Do I need to have the sheriff out in the parking lot? Okay, I get very concerned about violence in the workplace. So you need to identify what kind of concerns, not only from that individual, but if I can have a spouse or a parent showing up. Okay? If they've got personal effects in their office and you're trying to get them out of the building, they want to say goodbye to everybody, get them out of the office. Have somebody else that was not involved in the termination meet them on Saturday morning. You know, a maintenance person that has no say in it because they can't get mad at that person. They can't get by with that person. Make sense? So there's a lot there in that 5 minutes. Okay? And there's a script at the bottom of it. And finally, handbooks. So you're really going to need this. Maybe you don't need something so extensive with just one or two employees, and it's you and your wife or you and your husband. But as you grow, you want some basic stuff. And it doesn't have to be a full-blown handbook. At least get the rules and policies down, and when breaks occur, and when payday occurs. Okay? I would encourage you to look at the policies that are here, social media policy. A lot of your employees have Facebook, they've got Twitter, among other things. What do you do if they say something disparaging about you? You need to have a policy in place to protect yourself. Okay? So we're giving you employment, general policies about at will, etc., and then other things to think about with regards to benefits. They can be as short as 10 pages and as long as 80 pages, depending on what you want to do. Okay. Now, where do you find them? You know, we write them. I'm not here to sell you a handbook. It'd probably be too expensive for a lot of you, but at this point in time, you can go to a friend that's got one. Okay, but make sure it mirrors your business. Don't go to Lowe's. What was it? No, one of those. Yeah, don't go to Lowe's and get that handbook for you. It will not work. They've got FMLA in there, they've got all these other things that aren't appropriate for you. Okay? So make sure it's the right size for the right business. Yes?
So do you have a small business handbook that we can actually go by? Like you have an example or one on the internet that we could possibly look at to?
I'll tell you what, there's so many, you can find so many good handbooks out there, just probably online. You just need to be sure that it's state specific. You just have to do some research. Look for similar businesses. You're going to get, the problem you're going to get into is a lot of hospitals and higher education always put theirs out there for everybody to see. So any university, you want to see King University, it's online. That's not appropriate for you. But you'll find, you can probably just Google small business free template and get 90% of what you need. But as quickly as the environment's changing right now with employment law, and it probably will be that way, at least through the next elections, we're just seeing these laws kind of having to update annually right now. It used to be considered a handbook for about 3 to 5 years. So.
Is that something that once you develop, or you think you need, have a HR person kind of go over it just to make sure that y'all are pleasing?
Yeah, I mean, you can send it to us, and we'll tell you what we'll charge to review it. You can have an attorney review it. You can, if you have a friend in human resources that's higher level, have them take a look at it. Okay? All right, questions? I went over by a couple minutes. Was it helpful?
It was great.
Just a lot of information.
Thank you, Joel. We
You're
appreciate you coming out and being with us tonight.
Well, thank you.
So, next week, the people that will be doing pitches, are you ready? Drum roll. Mike Wright, Tommy Cundiff, Jill Wolf, and Danielle White. You know who you are? You got it? Next week, your pitches. How many minutes? 3. Okay. Your homework. You're gonna be discussing this book. If you didn't get one, there's some more on the table. Next week, you'll be discussing this little book. Should not take you very long to read it because it's mostly photographs. Okay, so have this ready, and next week's topic is, Robin?
Financial and legal.
Oh, how exciting! Financial and legal. So is there, did they all get this?
Yeah, they are.
Okay, you got this, you got the book. You're gonna learn about financial and legal. So drink coffee, get your caffeine going, be ready to learn and listen. So are all of y'all working on your business plan?
Yes.
Don't tell me a story now. Because you know what happened last time? The week before, it was due. Can you come help me? One paragraph written. So you're not gonna do that, right? You're working on it, really. Okay? All right. Any questions?
And one thing, Nakina, tell everyone who's having pictures made next week.
Next week we have Nathan Orms at 5 o'clock, Randall Mullins at 5:10, Sandra Argo at 5:20, Jack and Sonia Van Hook at 5:30, Thomas Cundiff at 5:40, and Jill Wolf at 5:50.
Okay. Can I bring props?
Yes, please bring
props. Because it makes your picture look really cool. All right. Everybody got that? All right. Who's doing their pitch next week? Who's doing pictures? Bringing props. Okay. All right. Have a good evening.
Wait, question. We finished our third session. What do you think about the content?
Also, to build on that, we will be sending out evaluations for the first, second, and third session all in one. It's something we just now thought of, so you get to do it in all one survey. But it'll be through SurveyMonkey, so I'll send it to your email, and then you can just fill it out when you have time. And then we'll do it for the fourth and the fifth session as well. Thank you.
All right. Good night. Yay.
And then you can just fill it out when you have time. And then we'll do it for the fourth and the fifth session as well. Thank you.
All right.